The hospital ceiling had 247 tiles. I counted them twice on the third night, when sleeping became impossible, and the oxygen mask made my face itch in ways I couldn't scratch. St. Vincent Medical Center, room 4187, Tuesday, October 16th, 2024. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. The pneumonia hit me like a freight train on Monday morning. One minute I was folding laundry in my living room in Toledo's Old West End. The next I was on my kitchen floor, unable to breathe, watching my neighbor Mrs. Chen call 911 through the window. Bilateral pneumonia, the young doctor said. Severe. Both lungs. They admitted me straight from the ER. I called Greg first. My son, 45 years old, running his HVAC business on the south side. The phone rang 4 times before he picked up. Background noise. Sandra's voice, sharp and irritated about something. Mom? What's wrong? I'm in the hospital. St. Vincent. Pneumonia. They say it's bad. A pause. Sandra said something I couldn't make out. Then Greg. Oh man, that's rough. Listen, Sandra has this huge thing tomorrow for the gym opening. Can I come Wednesday? Will you still be there Wednesday? My chest hurt in ways that had nothing to do with infection. I don't know, honey. The doctor said, okay, look, I gotta go. We'll figure it out. Feel better, Mom. Click. I stared at my phone for 10 minutes after that. The IV drip counted seconds in my peripheral vision. Drip, drip, drip. Then I called Karen, my daughter, 40 years old, real estate agent, always busy with showings and closings and open houses. Voicemail. I left a message. Karen, it's Mom. I'm at St. Vincent, room 4187. Pneumonia. Please call me back. She texted 2 hours later. OMG, Mom, sorry. Crazy day. We'll try to visit TMRW. Wednesday came. No Greg, no Karen. Just Denise, the night nurse, checking vitals and adjusting my oxygen. She was maybe 50, with kind eyes and hands that moved efficiently but gently. You doing okay tonight, Mrs. Hensley? Fine. I lied. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The weekend crawled by in a fog of antibiotics and breathing treatments and the constant beep of monitors. I watched the door every time footsteps approached in the hallway. Every time they passed by. On Sunday afternoon, Denise came in to change my IV bag. She glanced at the empty chair beside my bed, the same chair that had stayed empty for 5 days. Your family must be out of town, she said, not unkindly, just making conversation while she worked. Yes, I said. The lie came automatically now. They're traveling. For work. She nodded, satisfied with that explanation, and I felt something inside me crystallize into a hard, cold stone. The thing about lying in a hospital bed with nothing to do is that your mind wanders. It finds old memories and drags them out, forces you to look at them whether you want to or not. I thought about 1991. Greg was 19, got accepted to Ohio State, full of dreams about business management, about making something of himself. The tuition bill came, $4,200 for the first semester. We didn't have it. Jim was working at the glass factory. I was at the textile plant, and we were already stretched thin. I picked up a second shift, then a third. 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Running industrial looms until my hands cramped and my back screamed. I wore the same 3 outfits for 2 years because new clothes weren't in the budget, but Greg got his tuition. Every semester, somehow, we made it work. He graduated in 1995 with a degree in business administration and immediately forgot who paid for it. Then there was 2008. Karen's appendix nearly burst. Emergency surgery. She was 24, working part-time at a real estate office, no insurance. The hospital bill was $12,000. Our savings had $3,800. I sold my mother's wedding ring, the one she'd given me before she died. Yellow gold with a tiny diamond that caught light in the prettiest way. A pawn shop on Monroe Street gave me $850 for it. Jim sold his father's pocket watch for another $900. We took out a loan for the rest, paid it off over 3 years. Karen promised she'd pay us back when she got her license, when she started making real commissions. That was 16 years ago. I'm still waiting. The memories came in waves, each one sharper than the last. Every birthday I worked so they could have parties. Every Christmas I went without so they could open presents. Every time Jim looked at our bank statement and sighed, the weight of providing for two kids who never seemed satisfied pressing down on both of us. His last words to me, March 15th, 2023, at this same hospital, different floor, stage 4, pancreatic cancer. Nothing more they could do. His hand in mine, paper-thin skin over prominent bones. Don't let them use you like I did, Judy. His voice barely above a whisper. I was too soft. I saw what they were doing and I didn't stop it. Promise me you'll be stronger. I promised. I didn't understand then. I do now. They discharged me on Friday, October 22nd at 3:40 in the afternoon. 6 days. Not a single visitor. Greg texted once on Thursday. Hang in there, Mom. Karen called Friday morning, 20 minutes before discharge, sounding distracted. Oh, good. You're getting out today? That's great, Mom. Hey, I have a closing in 10 minutes. Can I call you back later? She didn't call back. I ordered an Uber. The driver was a man in his 60s named Dave, wearing a Cleveland Browns cap and a kind expression. He helped me with my overnight bag, even though hospital policy said he didn't have to come inside. No family picking you up, ma'am? They're busy, I said. Another lie. They were getting easier. The 25-minute drive from downtown to Old West End felt like crossing a desert. I checked my phone compulsively. 0 new messages. At one point, Dave asked if I wanted the radio on or off, and I couldn't answer because my throat was too tight. We pulled up in front of my house at 4:17 p.m. The little Victorian I'd lived in for 32 years, with the blue shutters Jim painted in 2019 and the flower boxes I planted petunias in every spring. Home, except the front door was open. Not wide open, just cracked, maybe 6 inches. My heart started pounding in a way that had nothing to do with pneumonia. Maybe Greg had come after all. Maybe he was inside waiting, had let himself in with his spare key to surprise me. Dave noticed my hesitation. You want me to check it out? No, it's fine. My son probably stopped by. I paid him, added a bigger tip than I could afford, and watched him drive away. The house was silent when I stepped inside. Greg? My voice came out scratchy, damaged from days of coughing. Karen? Nothing. I walked through the entryway into the living room, and that's when I saw it. The TV stand against the far wall, empty. The 42-inch flat screen Jim bought me for my 66th birthday. His last gift to me before the cancer got too bad was gone. The dust outline showed exactly where it had been. On the dining room table, propped against the ceramic fruit bowl, a note in Sandra's handwriting. I recognized her aggressive, angular script. Mom, we borrowed your TV for our game room. You don't watch it anyway. Greg will call you. S. Not even love Sandra. Just an initial. I stood there holding the note, reading it 3 times, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They'd come into my house while I was in the hospital, fighting to breathe, and taken my television. Borrowed it. Like that made it acceptable. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Instagram notification. I almost never checked Instagram. Karen had set up the account for me 2 years ago, insisted I needed to stay connected. But something made me open it now. Sandra's latest post. 47 photos in a carousel. Her new gym, Empower Fitness, grand opening night. October 18th. 3 days into my hospital stay. Balloons, champagne. Sandra in a tight athletic outfit, flexing for the camera. Greg in the background of several shots, grinning, holding a beer. The caption, best night of my life. Dreams do come true. Gym life. Boss lady. Dreams come true. Toledo. 312 likes. 84 comments. Congratulations. You're amazing. So proud of you. I sat down at the dining table, still holding Sandra's note in one hand and my phone in the other. The house was too quiet. Jim's absence felt enormous. A physical presence where he should have been. If he were here, he'd be furious. He'd call Greg immediately, demand an explanation, make this right. But Jim wasn't here. Jim was gone. Had been gone for 18 months, and I was alone in a house missing a television that used to belong to me. I set down the phone and the note very carefully. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and drank it standing at the sink, looking out at the backyard where Jim planted tomatoes every summer. The pneumonia still made me tired. My chest still hurt. But something else was happening inside me. something harder and colder than illness. It felt like waking up after a long, uncomfortable sleep. They'd left me to die alone. Then they'd robbed me. And apparently, they thought I'd just accept it. Greg called on Sunday, 10 days after I'd been admitted. I was folding towels in the laundry room when my phone rang, his name lighting up the screen. Mom, hey. His voice had that forced brightness people use when they know they've done something wrong but hope you won't mention it. Sandra told me you got out Friday. That's great. You feeling better? I set down the towel I was holding. I spent 6 days in the hospital, Greg. You never came. I know. Look, Sandra had this huge event for the gym opening. We sank $30,000 into it. Had to make sure everything went perfect. You understand, right? And you're home now, so obviously you're fine. Obviously. The word hung in the air like something rotten. You took my television. A pause, then a laugh, nervous and thin. Borrowed, Mom. We borrowed it. Our game room TV died and we had people coming over. We'll bring it back eventually. You barely use it anyway. Jim gave me that TV. Yeah, well, Dad's not here to care about it, is he? The words came out sharp, then immediately softened. Sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just stressed. The business has been tough lately. I closed my eyes, breathed through the tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with pneumonia. I almost died, Greg. The doctor said if I'd waited another day to come in, but you didn't die. You're fine. Jesus, Mom. Do we have to make everything so dramatic? A muffled sound, Sandra's voice in the background. Look. I gotta go. Sandra needs help with something. We'll talk later, okay? He hung up before I could respond. I stood in the laundry room for a long time after that, holding my phone, staring at nothing. The washer hummed through its cycle. Outside, Mrs. Chen's dog barked at something. Normal sounds in a world that felt increasingly unrecognizable. 3 days later, Wednesday afternoon, Karen showed up. No warning. Just a knock on the door at 2:15. She stood on my porch holding 2 Starbucks cups, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mom, hi! She kissed my cheek, the kind of brief, perfunctory kiss you give someone you're obligated to greet. Brought you a latte. Sorry I couldn't make it to the hospital. You know how crazy October is for real estate. The latte was cold. I could tell by the condensation on the outside of the cup. She'd probably bought it hours ago, forgotten it in her car. We sat in the living room, Karen perched on the edge of the sofa like she might need to flee at any moment. She talked for 8 minutes straight about interest rates and inventory shortages and a difficult client who kept changing her mind about neighborhoods. I said maybe 12 words total. Then she set down her untouched coffee and turned to face me fully, arranging her features into an expression I'd seen before. The one that preceded requests for money. Mom, I need to ask you something. She smoothed her skirt. There's an investment property in Mommy. Foreclosure, incredible opportunity. Brick Ranch needs cosmetic work, but the bones are solid. I could flip it for $60,000 profit. Easy. That sounds promising, I said carefully. The thing is, I need $8,000 for the down payment. My cash is tied up in another deal right now. I'll pay you back in 6 months, I promise. Maybe sooner if the flip goes fast. 6 months. The same time frame she'd promised in 2022 when she borrowed $12,000 for marketing materials for her agency. Marketing materials that never materialized. Money that was never repaid. Karen, about that $12,000 from 2 years ago. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them, like I was a child asking about something tedious. That was completely different, Mom. That was an investment in my business infrastructure. This is a flip with guaranteed profit. Do you want to help your daughter succeed or not? The question landed like a slap. Do you want to help your daughter succeed? As if my entire life hadn't been about helping my children succeed. As if I hadn't given them everything I had and most of what I didn't. Let me think about it, I heard myself say. Karen's face tightened. The offer expires Friday. I need to move fast on this. She stood, smoothing her skirt again. "Just write me a check before Friday, okay? I know you're good for it." She left without asking how I was feeling, without noticing the empty space where the TV had been, without seeming to register that I'd nearly died 2 weeks ago. After her car pulled away, I went to Jim's office. I'd been avoiding it since he died, keeping the door closed like if I didn't look at his things, they wouldn't remind me he was gone. But now I needed to be in there, surrounded by his presence. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, though I knew that was impossible after 18 months. His desk was still cluttered with papers I hadn't had the heart to sort through. His coffee mug, "World's Best Dad," a Father's Day gift from Greg in 1987, sat exactly where he'd left it. I opened the filing cabinet. Jim had always been meticulous about records, organizing everything by year and category. I found the folder labeled Judith Financial Records in the second drawer. Inside, every check I'd written to the kids, every single one, photocopied before deposit, organized chronologically. Jim's handwriting annotated each one. March 2020, Greg, $5,000, business emergency, bought boat 2 weeks later. July 2021, Karen, $12,000, marketing materials, never produced. November 2022, Greg, $18,000, equipment for HVAC business, Sandra's gym equipment. January 2023, Karen, $8, $500, closing costs on own house, still renting, on and on. 4 years of documentation. The total, written in red ink at the bottom of the last page, $127,340. Underneath the copies, a handwritten note on yellow legal paper dated February 22, 2023, 3 weeks before Jim died. "Judy, if you're reading this without me, it means I'm gone. I documented everything because I knew you'd need proof someday. They took $127,340 from us in 4 years. From you, really. I had insurance money I never told them about. I set something up for you. Call Martin Patterson at Patterson & Associates. He knows everything. Don't let them do this anymore. You're stronger than you know. I love you, Jim." My hands shook holding the paper. Jim knew. He'd known for years what they were doing, and he'd been preparing for this moment. Protecting me even after death. I sat at his desk for an hour, reading through every notation, feeling the weight of documentation transform into something else. Not just evidence, power. My phone rang. Greg again. "Mom, hey, forgot to mention something." He sounded rushed, distracted. "Sandra and I are co-signers on our business loan for the HVAC company. First National Bank. The bank requires all co-signers to reaffirm annually. It's just a formality. Takes like 5 minutes. Can you come downtown tomorrow at 2 and sign the papers?" Ice water through my veins. "I'm a co-signer?" "Yeah, has been for like 3 years. Dad set it up originally, then when he died we transferred it to you. You signed the papers, remember?" I didn't remember, but I'd signed so many things over the years, trusting that what my children told me was true, trusting like a fool. "How much is the loan for?" $40,000, but that's not important. It's just a reaffirmation. You don't have to pay anything. Just sign saying you're still willing to be co-signer. Standard bank stuff. Standard. Like stealing someone's TV. Like abandoning your mother in a hospital. Like taking $127,340 and never saying thank you. "I'll think about it," I said. Silence. Then, "What do you mean you'll think about it?" "Mom, this is time sensitive. The bank needs it by Friday." I said I'll think about it. "Mom," I hung up. 3 seconds later, my phone buzzed with texts. "Mom, you there? It's urgent. Call me back." I turned off my phone and sat in Jim's office as afternoon faded to evening. The folder of financial records lay open in front of me. Martin Patterson's business card, found in Jim's desk drawer, sat beside it. Tomorrow I'd write Karen a check for $8,000. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to see if I could still be the person I'd always been, the mother who gave and gave and gave. But after tomorrow, something would change. I could feel it forming inside me, hard and cold and certain. Jim had left me instructions, evidence, a way forward. I just had to be brave enough to take it. Outside, October darkness settled over Toledo. Inside Jim's office, surrounded by proof of betrayal written in his careful handwriting, I started planning. November 12th, My 68th birthday. I woke at 6:47 a.m. to silence. No calls, no texts. The house felt enormous around me, every room echoing with absence. By noon, I'd checked my phone 16 times. Nothing. At 9:14 p.m., Karen sent a text. "Oh no, Mom, I totally forgot. Happy B-Day." The emoji felt like an insult. Automated. Thoughtless. The kind of thing you send when you remember something you were supposed to care about but don't. I didn't reply. I'd written Karen the check on Thursday, $8,000. Check number 3847, dated October 30th, 2024. She'd hugged me, brief, performative, and promised again she'd pay me back in 6 months. Then she was gone, the check in her purse, another piece of me converted to cash for her convenience. The bank statement arrived Saturday. I spread it across the kitchen table next to Jim's folder of documentation. My savings account, $11,040. Everything left after 40 years of work at the textile factory, after the medical bills from Jim's cancer, after giving and giving until there was almost nothing left to give. Jim's folder told a different story. A story of systematic extraction. 2020, $23,400 to the kids. 2021, $31,000 $200 to the kids. 2022, $34,890 to the kids. 2023, $22,450 to the kids. Jim died in March. 2024, $15,400 to the kids so far. Total, $127,340. My house was worth maybe $185,000 according to the last property tax assessment. Paid off at least. Jim had insisted on that, working overtime for 3 years to clear the mortgage before he got sick. Joint checking account, $43,200. Insurance money from Jim's policy that I hadn't touched. Too afraid to spend it, because once it was gone, there'd be nothing between me and destitution. I did the math 3 times, hoping I'd calculated wrong. But numbers don't lie the way people do. At this rate, I'd be broke in 8 years. Sooner if Greg and Karen maintained their current extraction schedule. And they would. They always did. I found the receipt at the bottom of Jim's folder, stapled to a Post-it note in his handwriting. The receipt, Atlantis Paradise Resort, Turks and Caicos. Confirmation number for a 5-night stay, August 14th, 2024. Total, $8,347. Name on reservation, Sandra Hensley. The Post-it note, Judy, this is where your $18,000 gym equipment money went. She lied right to your face. I'm sorry I didn't tell you while I was alive. I was weak. Don't be weak like me. August. I'd written that check on August 3rd. Sandra had come to the house, crying about how the gym needed specialized equipment, how they'd found a bulk deal but needed cash immediately, how this was their dream, their future, their chance to build something real. I'd believed her. Handed over $18,000 I didn't have, money I'd scraped together by dipping into the insurance fund, telling myself it was an investment in my son's happiness. They went to the Caribbean, posted photos on Instagram. I checked, scrolling back through Sandra's feed with shaking hands. Parasailing, sunset dinners, couples massage. Sandra in a designer swimsuit, Greg with his arm around her waist, both of them grinning like people without a care in the world. Not a single photo mentioned me. Not one caption thanked Greg's mom for making the trip possible. I sat at the kitchen table until the room grew dark around me, too numb to turn on lights. The business card sat where I'd left it 3 days ago. Martin Patterson, attorney at law. Patterson and Associates, office downtown, 2 blocks from the courthouse. I called the number at 10:23 a.m. on Wednesday. The receptionist answered on the second ring. Professional, efficient. Patterson and Associates. This is Judith Hensley. My late husband Jim was a client. I found a note saying I should contact Martin Patterson. A pause, then warmer. Mrs. Hensley, yes. Mr. Patterson has been waiting for your call. Can you come in Friday at 10? Has been waiting. Like Jim had told him this would happen. Like he'd known I'd eventually need help. Friday at 10 is fine. Perfect. He'll have the documents ready. I spent the next 2 days in a strange, suspended state, moving through my house like a ghost. I cleaned rooms that didn't need cleaning, organized drawers already organized, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling. Thursday night I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs at 2:17 a.m., stood in the kitchen in my bathrobe, staring at the drawer where we kept the knives. Jim's voice in my head. Don't be weak like me. But I felt weak. I felt hollowed out, scraped clean of everything that made me a person. What was I without my children? Without the role I'd occupied for 45 years, mother, provider, safety net. I opened the drawer. The knives sat in their block, handles pointing up. The bread knife Jim used every Sunday to slice the sourdough he baked from scratch, his hobby, his meditation. He'd tried to teach me, but I could never get the starter right, always adding too much flour or not enough water. My hand hovered over the knife handle. A memory surfaced, sharp and vivid. Jim in this kitchen, 2019, laughing as I dumped another failed batch of dough in the trash. See? Mistakes don't ruin everything. You just start over. Try again. Try again. I closed the drawer. In the living room, I sat on the couch until dawn, wrapped in Jim's old cardigan that still hung in the coat closet. It didn't smell like him anymore, but I pretended it did. Our wedding photo sat on the mantel. June 3rd, 1978. Both of us 23 years old, stupid with hope, convinced love would be enough to build a life on, and it had been for a while. Until the kids came and everything got complicated and expensive and exhausting. Jim looked so young in the photo. So did I. Different people entirely. Before we learned what sacrifice meant, my phone buzzed. Greg. Mom, can you come sign those bank papers today? Getting urgent. I turned off my phone. Friday morning, I dressed carefully. Navy slacks, white blouse, the pearl earrings Jim gave me for our 30th anniversary, armor for battle, though I didn't know yet what I was fighting. Patterson and Associates occupied the 3rd floor of an old building on Madison Avenue. The elevator was slow, giving me time to consider turning around and going home. But home to what? An empty house with a stolen TV and children who'd forgotten I existed? The elevator doors opened. Martin Patterson's office smelled like old books and furniture polish. He stood when I entered, 64, maybe 65, with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He'd been at Jim's funeral, but we hadn't spoken much. Judith. He shook my hand firmly. I'm glad you called. Please sit. His desk was clear except for a single manila folder and a sealed envelope. Jim came to see me in January of 2023, Martin began, 2 months before he died. He was very specific about what he wanted to set up for you. He opened the folder. Inside, legal documents, trusts, beneficiary designations, language I didn't understand. Your husband created the Hensley Family Discretionary Trust using the proceeds from his life insurance policy, $250,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I didn't know about that policy. He took it out through his union in 2022, separate from the policy that went to your joint account. He wanted to make sure you'd be protected. Martin pulled out a document, turned it so I could read. The trust names Greg and Karen as beneficiaries. Each receives $125,000 when they turn 50. Greg's 4 years away. Karen's 9. My throat tightened. Jim had left them money, even after everything he'd provided for them. However, Martin continued, and his tone shifted, there's a behavioral clause. Jim was very clear about the conditions. He explained it carefully. The trust had provisions. If either beneficiary demonstrated a documented pattern of abandonment, financial abuse, or systematic disrespect toward me, Martin, as the independent trustee, had the authority to redirect that beneficiary's inheritance to charities of my choosing. The standard of proof is objective, Martin said. Medical records, third-party testimony, material evidence. Jim knew they'd contest this if it was vague, so he made it specific. He slid another paper across the desk. Jim's handwriting, dated February 20th, 2023. Martin, if Judith comes to you, it means they hurt her bad enough that she's ready to fight back. Help her. Document everything. The trust has teeth. Make sure she knows how to use them. Jim, my eyes burned. Jim had known, had seen it coming, had built me a weapon and left instructions on how to wield it. Do you have documentation? Martin asked gently. I opened my purse, pulled out the folder I'd brought. Hospital records showing 6 days without visitors. The note about the stolen TV. Copies of unreturned loans. Instagram screenshots of Sandra's vacation funded by my money. Martin reviewed each item in silence. When he finished, he set them aside and looked at me directly. This is more than sufficient. I can invoke the behavioral clause today if you authorize it. What happens to them? They lose the trust money. It goes to whichever organizations you designate. $250,000. Jim's last gift to his children, revoked. There's something else, Martin said. Jim also asked me to help you extricate yourself from any financial entanglements with Greg and Karen. Are there any? The co-signed loan. $40,000 at First National Bank. Martin's face remained neutral, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. We can remove you as co-signer, but you should know. Most commercial loans have an acceleration clause. If you withdraw as co-signer and Greg can't qualify a loan, the bank can demand immediate full payment. Will he qualify a loan? Based on the financial statements Jim showed me 2 years ago, no. $40,000. Due immediately. Greg's business would collapse. I thought about the hospital ceiling. 247 tiles. 6 days counting them while my son drank champagne at his wife's party. Remove me, I said. Martin nodded, pulled out forms, explained where to sign. His pen scratched across paper, official and irreversible. When I left his office 45 minutes later, I was no longer Jim's widow who let everyone take from her. I was something else now. Something with teeth. Martin filed the paperwork on Monday, November 18th. I watched him sign as witness, his signature steady and practiced. The co-signer removal request went to First National Bank at 11:32 a.m. via certified mail. They'll process it within 5 business days, Martin said. Then they'll evaluate Greg's creditworthiness as sole borrower. Given what Jim showed me about his debt-to-income ratio, I'd estimate the acceleration notice will arrive by the end of the month. Thanksgiving week. Greg would receive notification that he owed $40,000 in full while planning what turkey to buy. The symmetry felt appropriate. What about my own will? I asked. Martin had already prepared the documents. He slid them across his desk, crisp legal paper that smelled faintly of toner. I took the liberty of drafting options based on what Jim told me you might want. I read through carefully. The language was clear, brutal in its simplicity. I, Judith Hensley, being of sound mind, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. I leave nothing to my son Gregory James Hensley and my daughter Karen Marie Hensley. This is not an oversight, but a deliberate choice based on their pattern of abandonment and financial exploitation. My house, the Victorian with blue shutters that Jim painted, where we'd raised our children, where every room held 47 years of memories, would go to the Toledo Humane Society. Let them sell it. Use the money for animals who couldn't speak for themselves. At least someone should benefit from what I'd built. My remaining savings, the $11,340 that represented 4 decades of factory work, would be divided equally among Greg's 3 children when they turned 25. Not to Greg. To the grandchildren I barely knew because Sandra had slowly, methodically cut me out of their lives. There's a section here about personal effects, Martin said, pointing. Photos, jewelry, household items. Do you want to specify anything? Jim's wedding ring, kept in my jewelry box since his death. His pocket watch from his grandfather. The pearl earrings he'd given me. Those go to the grandchildren, too. Let them have something to remember their grandfather by, since their father won't tell them the truth about him. Martin made notes. This will certainly be contested. Let them contest. You have Jim's documentation. You have the hospital records. You have everything. I do. He paused. Judith, I need to ask, are you certain about this? Once we file, once Greg receives that acceleration notice, things will escalate quickly. He'll come to you. They both will. I thought about the hospital ceiling, about the stolen TV, about Karen's eye roll when I asked about the $12,000 she'd never repaid. About Sandra's Instagram post showing my $18,000 converted into Caribbean sunsets. I'm certain. Martin nodded. Had me sign in 3 places, dated each signature. Filed the original in his office safe and gave me a copy in a sealed envelope. One more thing, he said. He picked up the envelope that had been sitting on his desk throughout our meeting. Cream-colored paper, my name in Jim's handwriting. He asked me to give you this after you made your decision, not before. The envelope was sealed with tape, aged yellow after nearly 2 years. I held it carefully, afraid it might disintegrate. Take it home, Martin suggested. Read it when you're ready. I didn't wait until home. I sat in my car in the parking garage, hands shaking as I opened it. 3 pages, Jim's handwriting, less steady than usual, written when the cancer was already stealing his strength. My dearest Judy, if you're reading this, it means you found your strength. I'm so proud of you. I know these last years I let you down. I saw what the kids were doing and I didn't stop it. I told myself it was love, being supportive, but it was weakness. I was afraid of conflict, afraid they'd stop visiting if I said no. So I let them hurt you. I'll regret that until whatever comes after this life. I've set up the trust because I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I can protect you now. Martin is a good man. He'll help you. He'll make sure they can't take anything more from you. But Judy, I need you to understand something. What you're doing isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's self-preservation. You've given them everything and they've given you nothing but bills and heartache. That's not love. That's exploitation. I've left them money in the trust because I'm weak even now. I can't completely cut them off, but I've given you the power to do what I couldn't. Use it. Don't feel guilty. Protecting yourself isn't wrong. You deserve so much better than what they gave you. Better than what I gave you too, if I'm honest. You deserved a husband who stood up for you instead of enabling them. I'm sorry I wasn't that husband. Live for yourself now. Take that money in our account and do something that makes you happy. Travel. Take classes. Buy things you want instead of things they need. Be selfish for once in your life. You've earned it. I love you. I've loved you since we were 23 and you laughed at my terrible jokes. I'll love you whatever comes next. Don't let them make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. They've never felt guilty for choosing themselves over you. Forever yours, Jim. I cried in the parking garage for 20 minutes, Jim's letter pressed against my chest. Other cars came and went around me, life continuing while mine fractured and reformed into something unrecognizable. When I finally drove home, the November sky was heavy with clouds promising snow. Winter coming. Everything dying back to wait for spring. The call came on Monday, November 25th at 4:47 p.m. Greg. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, his voice tight with panic. Mom, I don't know what happened, but the bank sent me this crazy letter saying you removed yourself as co-signer, and now they want the full $40,000 in 30 days. There has to be a mistake. Call me back. This is urgent. He called 6 more times that evening. Then Sandra called. Then Greg again. My phone buzzed with texts. Mom, please, this will destroy the business. I have 18 clients depending on me. Why would you do this? Call me. I turned off my phone and ate dinner in silence. Leftover soup, crackers, a glass of water. The TV space in the living room was still empty, a rectangular ghost where my birthday gift from Jim used to sit. Tuesday morning, I drove to St. Vincent Hospital, asked to speak with the director of the pulmonary department. His name was Dr. Rashid, 50-something, with tired eyes that suggested he'd seen too much suffering. Mrs. Hensley, I remember you. How are you feeling? Better, thank you. I wanted to make a donation, to the pulmonary wing specifically. His eyebrows rose. That's very generous. I'd brought the check already written. $80,000, nearly half of Jim's insurance money. Money that had been sitting untouched because I was too afraid to spend it on myself, but not too afraid to give it away. Dr. Rashid stared at the check. Mrs. Hensley, this is extraordinary. I want it to go toward patient care, people who don't have family visiting them, who are alone. My voice cracked slightly. Make sure they have what they need. We'll create a dedicated fund in your name, the Judith Carol Hensley Patient Care Fund. No, the word came out sharp. In my husband's name, James Robert Hensley Memorial Fund. He would have wanted that. Dr. Rashid nodded slowly. We can do that. We'll put a plaque in the pulmonary wing. Would you like to approve the wording? Just his name and dates. Nothing else. He wouldn't want anything fancy. I left the hospital feeling lighter. $80,000 I'd never see again. But it wasn't going to Karen's investment properties or Sandra's vacations. It was going somewhere real, somewhere that mattered. My phone had 17 missed calls when I turned it back on. All Greg, one from Karen. I deleted the voicemails without listening. That night, I drafted a letter, not a legal document. Martin already had those. This was something else. An accounting, a record. The truth in my own words. To Greg and Karen, this isn't a will. This is an explanation. I spent 45 years giving you everything I had. I worked 3 shifts to pay for college. I sold my mother's wedding ring to pay for medical bills. I handed over $127,340 in 4 years while you told me it was investments and emergencies and opportunities. I nearly died in October. 6 days I waited in that hospital bed, counting ceiling tiles, waiting for you to care enough to visit. You were at parties. You were busy. I was dying alone, and you chose champagne over your mother. Then you stole my television. You didn't borrow it. You stole it. The last gift your father gave me before cancer took him. I'm done. Your father saw what you were doing and he protected me the only way he could. He left me weapons you didn't know existed. I'm using them now. The trust fund you didn't know about? It's gone. Redirected to charities. The loan I co-signed that you never told me about? I've removed myself. The bank wants their money. That's your problem now. I've changed my will. You get nothing. Not the house, not the savings, nothing. I've left everything to organizations that help those who can't help themselves. At least someone should benefit from what I built. This isn't revenge. This is consequence. This is what happens when you take and take until there's nothing left but a woman who's finally learned to say no. Your father loved you more than you deserved. So did I. We're done giving you chances to do better. Judith Hensley. I didn't mail it. I put it in an envelope, sealed it, wrote both their names on the front, and left it on my kitchen table where I could see it every morning. A reminder. A promise to myself. They'd find it eventually. Or they wouldn't. Either way, the words were written. The truth was documented. I'd said what needed saying. Outside, the first snow of winter started falling. Inside, I made tea and sat at the kitchen table with Jim's letter, reading it again until I had it memorized. The phone rang. Greg again. I turned it off permanently this time. Let him figure it out on his own. I'd solved enough of his problems. Greg showed up unannounced on Monday, November 25th at 7:38 p.m. I heard his truck in the driveway, the engine's familiar rattle that he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years, but never did because there was always something more important. I watched through the front window as he sat there for 3 full minutes before getting out. Even from a distance, I could see he looked wrong. Rumpled shirt, no coat despite the November cold, hair uncombed. He knocked, waited, knocked again harder. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Please, I need to talk to you." He looked terrible. Eyes bloodshot, stubble on his jaw, something desperate in the way he held himself. For a moment, I felt the old instinct. Let him in, make him tea, fix whatever was broken. But that instinct had gotten me 6 days alone in a hospital bed. "What do you want, Greg? Can I come in? It's freezing out here." I stepped aside. He walked past me into the living room, stopped when he saw the empty space where the TV had been. Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe, or recognition. "You didn't bring it back," I said. "What? The TV you borrowed." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Mom, I don't care about the TV right now. The bank is demanding $40,000 in 30 days. They said you removed yourself as co-signer. Why would you do that?" I stayed standing near the door, ready to throw him out if necessary, because I didn't know I was a co-signer in the first place. Dad set it up originally. When he died, we just transferred it to you. It was automatic. Nothing about taking my money has ever been automatic, Greg. You've always had to ask for it. Or in Sandra's case, lie about it. His face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "Turks and Caicos, August 14th through 19th. Atlantis Paradise Resort. $8,347. That's where my $18,000 for gym equipment went." I watched him process it. Watched realization crash over him in waves. "How did you—" "Your father documented everything. Every check I wrote you. Every lie you told. Every time Sandra manipulated me while you stood there and let it happen. Greg sank onto the couch like his legs had given out. I didn't know about the vacation. Sandra said it was a business trip, a wellness industry conference. You're still blaming her. I'm not. He stopped, started again. You're right. I should have known. I should have checked. But Mom, the business loan, that's different. I have 18 clients depending on me. If I default, I lose everything. You already lost everything that mattered. You just didn't notice. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something besides panic. Understanding, maybe. The hospital. You're talking about the hospital. 6 days, Greg. I counted the ceiling tiles, 247 of them. I memorized every crack in the plaster because I had nothing else to do while I waited for my children to care that I was dying. Sandra said. He stopped himself. Closed his eyes. Sandra told me you were being dramatic. That you wanted attention. That if we came running every time you called, we'd never have our own lives. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. It was easier than believing my wife was turning me against my mother. Was she? Or did she just give you permission to do what you already wanted? The words hit him like a physical blow. He doubled over, elbows on knees, head in hands. For a long moment, the only sound was the furnace clicking on, pushing warm air through vents. I got a message from your nurse, he said finally. Denise, on day 2, she said you were asking for me, that you were really sick. I showed Sandra. My heart hammered. What did she say? She said you were always making up drama, that you'd done this before, called crying about being lonely or sick, trying to manipulate us into dropping everything. She said her therapist told her about elderly parents who use health crises to control their adult children. He laughed, bitter and broken. She made it sound so reasonable. Like saying no to you was healthy boundary setting. I've never called crying about being lonely. I know that now. But in the moment, with Sandra in my ear, with the gym opening happening, with everything else, I chose to believe the version that let me off the hook. He looked up at me, and I saw my son clearly for the first time in years. Not the man he'd become, but the boy he'd been. The one who came home crying in 3rd grade because other kids made fun of his homemade lunch. And I'd secretly taken extra shifts to buy him Lunchables so he'd fit in. That boy was gone. This man had taken his place. This weak, manipulated, complicit man. There's more, I said. Your father left you and Karen money, a trust, $250,000. Greg's head snapped up. What? He set it up before he died. You'd each get $125,000 when you turned 50. But there was a clause. If either of you demonstrated a pattern of abandonment or financial abuse toward me, the money would be redirected to charity. No. The word came out strangled. No, Dad wouldn't. He did. Martin Patterson is the trustee. I've already given him the documentation, the hospital records, the Instagram posts, the loan history, all of it. Mom, please. It's done, Greg. You lost the inheritance. Both of you did. He stood abruptly, swayed like he might fall. You can't do that. That's my money. Dad left it for me. He left it conditional on you treating me like a human being. You failed. This is because of Sandra. She poisoned everything. I see that now, I swear. But that money, I need that money. The business is failing. If I can just hold on until I turn 50. You're 45. You have 5 years. You think you can behave decently for 5 years and then everything will be fine? I can change. I will change. I went to Jim's office, came back with the folder, the one with Jim's careful documentation, every check photocopied, every lie annotated, every betrayal recorded in his shaking handwriting as cancer destroyed him. I dropped it on the coffee table in front of Greg. Your father made this for you. Open it. He did. Slowly at first, then faster as he realized what he was looking at. Years of proof. Evidence of systematic exploitation. His own signature on dozens of thank you texts that promised repayment that never came. At the bottom of the stack, photocopies of text messages. Jim had somehow captured them. Maybe from phone bills. Maybe he'd figured out how to access backups. I didn't know, and didn't care. They were between Sandra and her friend Lauren. Dated September 2023, 6 months after Jim died. Sandra: Greg's mom is such a cash cow, lol. Lauren: how much this time? Sandra: $12K for business emergency. She bought it completely. Lauren: what did you actually spend it on? Sandra: new sectional for the living room. The old one was hideous. Sandra: she'll give us anything if I make Greg ask sad enough. Lauren: damn, you're good, Sandra. I know Greg read them 3 times. Then he stood, walked to my kitchen, and vomited in the sink. I didn't move to help him, just stood there listening to him retch, watching him confront what he'd been too cowardly to see. When he finished, he ran water, splashed his face, came back to the living room looking like a corpse, sat on the floor instead of the couch, back against the wall, arms wrapped around his knees like a child. She never loved me. Not a question, a realization spoken out loud. I don't know if she loved you or not. I know she used you. I know you let her. I know you chose her over me every single time it mattered. Dad knew all this. He knew everything. He tried to protect you anyway. Left you that money with the clause because he hoped you'd prove you deserved it. You proved the opposite. Greg's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Sandra, she wants to know where I am. He looked at me. She doesn't know I'm here. I told her I was going to the bank to try to work something out. What will you tell her? I don't know. He stared at his phone like it was a foreign object. She'll be furious about the loan, about the trust money. She's been planning how to spend my inheritance for 2 years. She has spreadsheets. Of course she does. Mom, His voice broke completely. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it. What's done is done. The trust is redirected. The loan is your responsibility. I've changed my will. When I die, you get nothing. Not the house, not the savings, nothing. He flinched like I'd struck him. You're cutting me out completely? Why shouldn't I? You cut me out of your life. You just kept me around as a bank. What about the kids? Your grandchildren? I've left a small amount for them, for when they're 25, old enough to understand what their father did. Old enough to make their own choices about whether they want to know their grandmother's story. They're 6, 9, and 11. Mom, you're punishing them for my mistakes. I'm protecting myself. If they want a relationship with me, they can have one. On my terms. When they're old enough to form their own opinions instead of repeating whatever Sandra tells them. Greg sat there for a long time, phone still in his hand. Sandra's text unanswered. Outside, a car drove past. Headlights sweeping across the living room wall. What do I do now? He finally asked. Whatever you want. You're 45 years old. Figure it out. Will you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about forgiveness, about whether it was something you gave freely or something that had to be earned, about whether some betrayals were too deep to come back from. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me in 5 years. If you're still trying to be better, if you've left Sandra, if you've paid back every cent you took from me, maybe then we'll talk about forgiveness. 5 years, if you make it that long. He pulled himself to his feet, moving like an old man, walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. Dad's letter, the one Martin gave you. Can I read it? No, please. I need to know what he said. He said you were weak. He said I was stronger than both of you. He was right. Greg nodded slowly, opened the door to November cold, turned back one more time. I'm sorry, Mom. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. So am I said. For both of us. He left. I watched his taillights disappear down the street, then closed the door and locked it. The house felt different now. Not empty. Quiet. There was a difference. I picked up Greg's phone from where he'd left it on the coffee table. Sandra's text still glowing on the screen. Where are you? We need to talk about the bank situation. I turned it off and set it on the mantel. He'd come back for it eventually. Or he wouldn't. Either way, I was done chasing after my children. 3 months later, I stood in the small apartment I'd rented in Maumee, watching snow fall over the Maumee River. February had come in cold and clean, the kind of winter that buried everything under white and made you believe in fresh starts. I'd sold the Victorian in January. $182,000. A young couple with a baby bought it, loved the blue shutters and the flower boxes. I didn't tell them about the years of memories embedded in those walls. They'd make their own. The apartment was modest. 2 bedrooms, second floor, $850 a month. I'd bought it outright for $98,000, paid cash, kept the rest of the house money in savings. The math worked now. I could live comfortably for the rest of my life if I was careful. Not that I planned to be careful anymore. The pulmonary wing at St. Vincent had held a small dedication ceremony in January. The James Robert Hensley Memorial Patient Care Fund. They'd mounted a bronze plaque in the waiting area with his name and dates. Dr. Rashid gave a speech about compassion and community. I sat in the back and left before the reception. The $80,000 felt like the best money I'd ever spent. Karen had disappeared. Martin received a letter from her attorney in December, attempting to contest the trust modification. It lasted 2 weeks before her lawyer withdrew, probably after reviewing Jim's documentation. She'd moved to Dublin, married some real estate developer she'd been seeing behind her boyfriend's back. I heard about it through Mrs. Chen, who heard it from someone at the grocery store. She never called to say goodbye. Greg's story was more complicated. His business failed in January. First National Bank foreclosed on the equipment after he couldn't make the accelerated payment. The HVAC company dissolved. He lost the house. It had been in Sandra's name, for asset protection, and she'd filed for divorce on December 3rd, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce revealed things even I hadn't known. Sandra had opened 2 credit cards in Greg's name without his knowledge. $31,000 in debt, designer clothes, spa treatments, furniture. She'd been planning her exit for months, bleeding him dry before she left. She moved to Columbus in January, blocked Greg on everything. I heard she married a gym chain owner in March, 6 months from filing to remarriage. Some people moved fast when there was money involved. Greg moved into an efficiency apartment in Oregon District, 400 square feet, shared bathroom down the hall. He got a job at a warehouse, loading trucks for $13 an hour. I knew all this because he'd started leaving messages on my voicemail, not asking for money, not making excuses, just updates. Progress reports, maybe. Proof he was still trying. Mom, it's Greg. Day 47 sober. Started AA last week. Just wanted you to know. Mom, got my first paycheck. $427 after taxes. It's not much, but it's mine. Mom, my therapist says I need to take accountability. So I'm saying it out loud. I abandoned you. I chose Sandra over you every time. I stole from you. I'm sorry. I never called back. But I listened to every message. In February, Martin called. Greg's attempting to pay you back. He sent a money order for $200. Should I return it? I thought about it for a long time. $200 against $127,340. A drop in an ocean of debt. No, open an account. Track it. If he keeps paying, we'll see where it goes. He won't be able to pay it all back. Not in his lifetime. I know, but I want to see if he tries. 2 weeks later, another $200. Then $150. Then $175. Irregular amounts whenever he had extra. Each one documented by Martin, building a record of something I couldn't name yet. Not redemption, not forgiveness. Something smaller and more fragile. Effort, maybe. The attempt to become someone different than who he'd been. On a Tuesday in late February, Greg showed up at St. Vincent. I know because Dr. Rashid called me. Mrs. Hensley, your son came by today. He asked about job openings. We have a part-time position in facilities maintenance. $14 an hour. I wanted to check with you before proceeding. Why would you check with me? The fund is in your husband's name, but you created it. If having your son work here would be uncomfortable, it's your decision, Dr. Rashid, not mine. I'm offering him the position. He starts Monday. I thought you should know. I hung up and sat very still. Greg working at St. Vincent, mopping the floors of the same building where I'd nearly died alone. The symmetry felt biblical. A week later, Martin called again. Greg wants to meet with you. He says he has something to show you, but he won't tell me what it is. Should I set it up? I'd been avoiding this. Avoiding him. The messages were manageable. One-way communication I could control. But seeing him meant risk, meant opening a door I wasn't sure I wanted opened. Where? Neutral ground. The coffee shop on Conant Street. Saturday at 2 if you're willing. I was silent for so long Martin spoke again. Judith, you don't have to do this. He has no legal claim to anything. No leverage. If you want to maintain distance, that's completely reasonable. Schedule it, I said. I'll be there. Saturday came cold and bright. I dressed carefully. Not armor this time, just a sweater Jim had liked, jeans, comfortable boots. I drove myself to the coffee shop, got there 10 minutes early, ordered tea I didn't drink. Greg arrived exactly at 2. He'd lost weight. His coat was too big, probably from Goodwill. His boots had duct tape holding one sole together. He looked like what he was, a man starting over from nothing. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee he'd obviously bought to justify taking up space. "Thank you for coming," he said. "What did you want to show me?" He pulled out his phone, opened a note app, turned it toward me. It was a spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, explanations. Every dollar he'd taken from me over the past 4 years, listed with brutal honesty. March 2020, $5,000, claimed business emergency, bought boat. November 2022, $18,000, claimed gym equipment. Sandra used for Turk's vacation. January 2023, $80,500, claimed closing costs, spent on furniture, on and on. His memory matched Jim's documentation almost exactly. A few amounts were off by $50 or $100, but the pattern was identical. At the bottom, total taken, $127,340. Total repaid so far, $1,125. Remaining, $126,215. Below that, current income, $427 a week after taxes. Estimated full repayment, 8 years at current rate, assuming no emergencies or setbacks. Realistic timeline, 15-20 years. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Greg said. "I know I can't pay it back in any reasonable time frame, but I needed you to see that I know what I did. Every dollar, every lie." I looked at the spreadsheet, at the careful accounting, at 20 years of payments stretching ahead of him. "Your father left you a letter," I said. "Did you know that?" His head jerked up. "What?" "Martin has it, in a safety deposit box. Jim wrote it before he died. Instructions for how to become the son he hoped you'd be. Can I read it?" "No, not yet. Maybe not ever. That depends on you." "And what does it say?" "It says you need to show up. Not with money, with presence. It says you need to pay me back every cent, even if it takes 20 years. It says you need to be better than you were." Greg's eyes were wet. "I'm trying." "I know. Dr. Rashid told me about the hospital job." "You knew?" "I know everything now. That's the difference between who I was and who I am." We sat in silence. The coffee shop hummed with other conversations, other lives happening around us. Normal people with normal problems. "What happens now?" Greg asked. "You keep paying. You keep showing up at your job. You stay in therapy. You stay away from Sandra or anyone like her. You become someone your children can respect when they're old enough to understand what happened. That's it? That's everything. Will you ever forgive me?" The question again, the one I still couldn't answer. "Call me on Sundays," I said instead. "Between 2 and 4. Not long conversations, just check-ins. Let me know you're still alive and still trying. Just Sundays? For now. Maybe that changes. Maybe it doesn't. This is what I'm offering." He nodded slowly. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Prove it." I stood to leave. Greg stood too, uncertain. For a moment I thought he might try to hug me. He didn't. "Mom, Dad's letter. What do I have to do to read it?" I considered lying. Considered saying he'd never be ready. But Jim had believed in second chances even when they weren't deserved. "Ask me again in a year. If you've kept every promise, if you've stayed sober, if you've paid what you can, if you're still showing up, then maybe 1 year, if you make it that long." I left him there with his phone and his spreadsheet and his duct-taped boots. Drove back to my apartment, made dinner for one, watched the sunset over the river. That night, I took out the box I'd been avoiding. Jim's things. His wedding ring. His watch. The photos from before the kids made everything complicated. I found the picture I was looking for. Greg at 6 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish he'd caught at Lake Erie, Jim's arm around his shoulders, both of them so happy. I made a copy the next day, put it in an envelope with a brief note. This is who you were. It's not too late to find him again. Mailed it to Greg's efficiency apartment. He called that Sunday at 2:47 p.m. I got the photo. I know. I'd forgotten about that day. We grilled the fish for dinner. It tasted terrible, but Dad pretended it was delicious. He was good at that. Mom, He stopped. Started again. I'm not asking for anything, I just wanted to say I got it. The photo, the note, it matters. Good. We talked for 4 minutes. Weather, his work schedule. Nothing important. Everything important. When I hung up, the apartment felt less empty. The sun was setting over the Maumee, painting the water orange and gold. Jim's cardigan hung in my closet. His letter sat in my nightstand drawer. Read so many times I had it memorized. Be selfish for once in your life. You've earned it. I'd sold the house, given away the money that mattered, set boundaries I should have set 40 years ago. I lived alone in a small apartment and ate dinner at whatever time I wanted and answered to no one. This was selfish. This was earned. And maybe, there was room for one Sunday phone call a week. Room for a son trying to find his way back from darkness. Room for something that wasn't forgiveness yet, but might become it, given time. Outside, February snow fell soft and steady. Inside, for the first time in years, I felt warm.